All right. Happy Sabbath, everyone. Uh, Full disclosure, I have not taken a shower yet, and that wouldn't be following God's will because I'd be unclean still. So I'm going to do that immediately after this video, and my yes will be my yes. So I will make sure I do that right after this video. Um, we have a lot to get to today. I hope it doesn't take too long, but first let me bring you guys up to speed. I'm thinking I'm going to break my fast tonight, which it won't be like 72 hours, but it will maybe be like 60 something, maybe like 64 hours or something like that. I was shooting for a week, but I woke up and I said I was not really hungry, and I still I got really hungry earlier. It's about 4 o'clock now. I got really hungry earlier, uh, but that wasn't what was doing it because I've gone through the hunger pains before and been totally fine on like a 4-day fast, but I was like woozy, like couldn't walk well and all this stuff. And as I said in my other video, my mother wants me to help her because we're moving out of this house. Or I'm not, they are, but I have somewhere else to go that I'll go. So yeah, I have to help her move on Monday and Tuesday, and I don't want to dishonor her and tell her I can't do it, because I'm fasting. I haven't even told my family that I'm fasting yet. Every time I've told my family in the past that I'm fasting, they get on my case about it, and they don't support it at all. So I know in the Bible also it says, when you fast, you should wash your face, right? So that people don't know that you don't fast, because it's all about being humble, right? Like I shouldn't go around telling people, but if I'm telling, people online that are actually believers of the word and that are trying to follow the word, I think you guys can understand more than they can. So anyways, yeah, so I might break my fast because of that with my mother and because I was super, super woozy today. And then the other thing is, today, like I told you guys, I was going to ride at the beach and I was going to read the word like, 6 to 8 hours a day on the beach and, just take notes and get into my Bible definitions. But, like today I was like dead, and yesterday was like really hard, and today I also got a late start, and I just was like, you know what, it's Sabbath. I don't think I should go ride my bike 5 miles there and 5 miles back when I can just stay at home and listen to a sermon online, which is what I did. If anyone has heard of Shofar Mountain, I completely support what Pastor Joe Fox is doing over there, and that's where I strive to get to one day. I don't care if it's 5 people, 10 people, 50 people. I want to do what he's doing one day. So go check out Shofar Mountain or Pastor Joe Fox. I don't like his name on his preparedness things, but I guess he's got Norse lineage or whatever, so he says Viking preparedness, but he doesn't have any other gods before the Most High. That's for sure. I can assure you guys of that, or at least from what I can see, he's a good Christian. I think he calls himself a Hebrew Israelite, but he's white, and I don't think he's like anything like those other Hebrew Israelites. He's I think he agrees with Pastor Dowell, which I think is like one of the guys that is actually like a stand-up kind of guy. Like a lot of the people that are like African American and they're into like the Hebrew Israelite movement, they're very racist and they say like all white people are Edomites and blah blah blah, and they, I don't know, they kind of dive into it. But whereas Pastor Dowell has said like, guys, this isn't like a race issue, right? This is about, we're following Torah, we're following the Bible. So I'm not very familiar with Pastor Dowell and his stuff. I just know that he seems to be a stand-up guy, and Pastor Joe Fox gets along with him, and yada yada. So, all right, moving on. Let's get to what I want to get into. Okay. So, first thing is, I think in my last video I talked about live by the sword and die by the sword, right? And I went into the definition for take. Those who take up the sword shall perish by the sword. That's what the King James says, and that's what the corresponding words were in the concordance when I went to it. So I went over take, to take the sword, and then I went over perish, and then I went over sword. So we went over that, and this is going to kind of stem from that a little bit, right? So we've got, those are my old notes. So yeah, so this is my notes today, third day of fast. So let's talk about Sabbath and no work, and then we'll get more to the sword stuff later on, which it's not about sword. We'll get to that. Sabbath. So like, oh wait, didn't I do this before? Yeah, I did. No, I did this in my other video. I'm sorry, no work on the Sabbath or whatever. This is where I'm getting to now is thou shalt not kill, and then some Bibles have thou shalt not murder, specifically from Exodus 20:13. Okay, I've always wondered this, right? This is why I talked about take up the sword, perish by the sword, right? So in the Bible, we see that God has his people, take care of other people more or less. And those people are unrighteous people. They're the people that were sacrificing their firstborn sons to the Baals, and they were worshiping these pagan gods, and they were very unrighteous. And I think they might have even been cannibals or whatever. I'm not 100% sure on that, but there was some bad stuff about those people, right? And so I'm wondering, like, thou shalt not kill, like, is this talking about thou shalt not kill ever in any circumstance ever? Or is this talking about thou shalt not murder, like kill unjustly? Or, we'll get into a lot of stuff, right? So first, I guess I'll just start it off, right? But Exodus 20:13 says, man, I'm going away from my other place that I wanted to stay at too for the later stuff. 20:13 is one of the 10 Commandments, right? It just says in the King James, it says, you shall not murder. That's what it says in the King James. But when I looked in the concordance, it was kill, right? But here's the thing. So we go to the word for kill. There's another word used for kill, but this one is talking about 7,523 in Chaldean, which this was in the like all the books up to the New Testament. But then in the New Testament, the word for it's murder, which is 5,407. Okay, Matthew 19:18. It's like I was looking for a second witness for thou shalt not kill, right? And it's Jesus, right? It's Matthew 19:18, and in the King James, it says specifically, you shall not murder. He said he said to him, which ones? He's talking about the commandments which you're supposed to follow to the rich young ruler who's wondering how to get in heaven. He says, which ones or whatever. He says, Jesus said, you shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness, right? So don't murder. Don't commit adultery. Don't steal and don't lie, right? You want to get into the kingdom, you got to not do that stuff, which is what I've done pretty much my whole life. Not so much the murder, but, maybe one time arguably with, I went over that in my testimony, I think, or maybe it was on the video, but I paid for one of my best friend's abortions when they couldn't come up with the money. So, I'm a murderer by that standard, I would say. Anyways, so, it says murder in the New Testament, which is Jesus would be the second witness, and the other one says thou shalt not murder. But the word is actually kill when it corresponds with the Strong's Concordance. So what I did was I went to the Strong's, or to the first, I went to the Hebrew word for kill that was used in Exodus 20:13, 7,523. Ratsak is how you pronounce it. A primitive root proposition to dash into pieces, an example to kill, in parentheses, a human being, especially to murder, put to death, kill, manslayer, murderer, and then this is also used in Psalms 94:6, Jeremiah 7:9, Hosea 6:9. I was going to go to those verses and kind of try to put it in context. I guess I still could. I don't want to take up too much time, but we'll just do one of them. How about that? Let's do Jeremiah 7:9. So Jeremiah 7:9 says, will you steal, murder, commit adultery, swear falsely, burn incense to Baal, and walk after other gods whom you do not know? So look, it's translated again in the King James as murder, right? But the word is kill that corresponds with 7,523. So this word for kill most assuredly, like it says in the definition, especially to murder, right? So that makes sense to me that they're talking about murder and not just kill. Like, we're talking about self-defense here, right, is what I'm trying to figure out. If someone comes to slay you and your family, well, if someone comes to slay me, I'd probably just say so be it, you know, like you're like if you have to kill me, I'm not going to denounce the Father, and if you have to kill me, like so be it. It's going to be on your hands, and you're going to be have your punishment, right? If someone comes to take out, you know, my future wife and kids, or you know, they try to come take away my people and do something unjustly or something like that, like I would defend someone else more so than I would defend my own life. I could accept losing my life. I couldn't accept, you know, some little child being gone after. You know, I would defend them to the fullest that I could. And if that requires me to do something in defense, you know, that I wouldn't normally do, then I would think that I would do that. And I think that'd be permissible by the Most High, right? But a lot of the Bible verses have it translated, thou shalt not kill. And then also, like we went over, those who take up the sword shall die by the sword, right? So, and then we went over that, like we didn't get a full conclusion. Like it could be, like possibly there could be still room, I believe, with what I went over in my other video. I believe there could still be room for like self-defense in extreme circumstances and stuff like that. But if you take up the sword to like war regularly, or you live by the sword, or you know, all these things that I went over in my other video, I think that you're just going to die by the sword, which doesn't mean you won't get into heaven. It just means your death is going to be by the sword. So if you want to die of gunshot wounds or a knife wound or something like that, you know, so be it. I don't want to. I would like to live and die of old age, or to be, you know, I don't know if there's a rapture or not. I still got to get into that. I think that we might have to die and then we're resurrected and then we get to live for 1,000 years and then we get to live eternally in the spirit. That's like my most basic understanding. Don't take that and run with it. That's what I think it's saying to me, you know, off of just face value, reading the text once. I haven't even finished the entire Bible yet. Okay, I've only finished about maybe 40 to 50% of the books, and closer to 40% of the books. So I still need so much reading to do. Okay. Moving on back to the word kill, right? We went over the Hebrew terminology. Let's go to the Greek now. So Matthew, where Jesus says you shall not murder, right? Murder is corresponding with 5,407. It says from 5,406, 5,407. Kill. Okay. Murder. Do slay. To be a murderer, or it says actually it's to be a murderer of, kill, murder, do slay. Sorry, from 4,507. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's just phenero. I wrote down the word so I can learn for myself. But it said that it was from 5,406. Sorry. So 5,406. It says from 5,408. It says 5,406 means a murderer. Always, here we go. Parentheses. Always of criminal, brackets, or at least intentional, brackets, homicide. Okay, we all know what homicide is, right? Like pre-planned murder. Which 443 in the Greek, which I'm guessing that's another word for kill, does not necessarily imply. While 4,607 in the Greek, which I'm guessing that means another word for killer or something like that, says while 4,607 is a specific term for public bandit, murderer, right? So that could be like public bandit, could be like outlaw, right? Outlaw or murderer or something like that. So we've got in 5,406, it's talking about, and I'll get to 5,408, which just says what it's from, but we're talking about a murderer, in parentheses, always of criminal or at least intentional homicide, which does not necessarily imply, homicide, and parentheses, right? Then it says, which does not necessarily, the word 443, which 443 does not necessarily imply. Okay, so that could just be like your normal word for kill. So why didn't they use that word? If we were never allowed to kill, period, ever, why wouldn't they just use 443? And instead they got to use 5,407, which corresponds with 5,406. So here's the other thing. I wanted to go to just basic definitions online. Okay, so the word for Murder in English law, this is just from Wikipedia, murder is an offense under the common law of England. It is considered the most serious form of homicide in which one person kills another with the intention to cause either death or serious injury unlawfully. Okay, unlawfully, right? So we're talking about like unjust murder, like unjust killing would be murder, obviously, we all know this, but then we go even deeper, right? Like the definition for 7,523 says, put to death, kill, manslayer, right? Well, what is a manslayer? Is that not what manslaughter is, right? And manslaughter can be without intentionally doing it, but here, let's go to this. The Moral Penal Code classifies homicides differently without degrees. Under it, murder is any killing committed purposefully and knowingly. Manslaughter is any killing committed as a result of recklessness. Okay, and then it goes into negligent homicide, killing someone from negligence, right? So killing someone from negligence isn't even the same as murder, but killing someone by being reckless, right? Like driving your car recklessly and then killing them, right? It's like, well, you're being reckless. What do you expect? You know, I think that's what it's talking about. Don't be a manslaughter. Don't be a murder. So then we've got 5,408 from obsolete primitive pheno to slay, comma murder, be slain with slaughter. Okay. You know what? I was gonna have slaughter ready for you guys, but I'll just do slaughter define and slaughter killing of animals for food. I don't know if that's gonna fit this this context, but you know, slaughter, you guys know what a slaughter is. All right, I don't need to get into it. So that's that as far as kill, right? And now let's go to a different topic. So yeah, so I think that we are justified in extreme scenarios of self-defense. That's what I think in the Bible, biblically, right? I also think, you know, maybe if you take up the sword to, even if it's self-defense where, you know, maybe it's not a super extreme circumstance where you might just let them steal your stuff or whatever it is, right? You're not going to get banished to hell for that, right? But you're going to die by the sword. That's what your punishment is going to be. You can still make it into heaven, but you're going to die by it, you know, by the sword. You know, you're going to have to suffer the same pain that you gave to them, even though it wasn't necessarily unjustly, right? You're still going to have to suffer that. That's what my understanding is, right? Someone come at me and explain to me if and where and when I'm wrong, okay? Now let's get into, I want to go into this verse which talks about, come out of her, my people, lest ye be partakers of her sins, right? Where am I looking at here? So we're talking about, what was this, prelude to the bowls, or where was this exactly? Yeah, mystery, Babylon, the woman, the meaning of the woman and the beast, fall of Babylon her great. All right, so Revelation 18:4, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins and lest you receive of her plagues. Right? So I do believe that we're in the end times. We're in the fig tree generation. I believe we got a whole lot more stuff to go. You know, at least 20 plus years, maybe 50 something years. I could be wrong because some evidence points to suggest that we could be in the tribulation now, but in all the earthquakes and hurricanes that have been happening are the start of the tribulation, which I think are actually the birth pangs. But there's this solar eclipse that hit the U.S. in 2017, and there's another solar eclipse coming in 2024. They're not exactly 7 years apart. They might be on the Hebrew calendar. I'm not sure, but on the Gregorian they're not. But that's 7 years, right? And we're only like 2 years into the tribulation, right? And it's already, we're seeing some craziness, wars and rumors of wars, right? Stuff like that. So, like I said, I don't think the tribulation happens and then it's the end of the world. I think the tribulation happens and then, you know, other stuff happens and then maybe the second coming and then maybe God's wrath. I don't know. I don't have the answers on all this stuff. But what I do have answers on right now is, come out of her, my people, lest you be partakers of her sins, or lest you share in her sins unless you receive of her plagues, right? So, who's her? Come out of who? We're talking about specifically the Scarlet Woman and the Beast. We're talking about either the only, because I looked up the word her in the Strongs and it didn't correspond with Revelation 18, which means that it could have just been added from one of the manuscripts or whatever. But it's specifically referring to Mystery Babylon, right, which is just Babylon, and it's referring to Jezebel, the Jezebel spirit. Okay, where I swear I had this already, and of course I all lost it. So it's talking about, you know, where does it say that woman Jezebel? Oh man, please don't do this to me. Anyways, I guess, you know, if someone, I can put it in the comments, okay? But it says it in Revelation. It talks about Jezebel in Revelation, and it also talks about Babylon, which I'm sure everyone is familiar with, especially Mystery Babylon, right? So I went and I looked up the definitions for Babylon and Mystery Babylon, because here's my thing. I think we need to come out of her both spiritually and physically, right? Like we need to come out, we need to stop living in sin, right? But we need to, like me the other day, right? Like I had someone in front of me that was full, that the temptation was so outrageous, right? Well, if I was living in the wilderness, living with God's people who believed in the word, who followed the word, I'm not going to have that stuff in my face anymore, right? I mean, how much easier would I be living free of sin? I'm sure sin would come by me and temptation would come by me, but it's like, there's not going to be like, you know, the $100,000 to, you know, screw this person over payout, you know. So it's like not going to be, oh, Satan's tempting you super hard because you're living in his cities, right? You're going to be going and living in God's places with God's people. So anyways, yeah, let's go to the definitions, right? I don't want to ramble too much. I'm trying to make this relatively short, but this is going to be a bit of a longer study. Oh no, it'll probably be less than 40 minutes. So what if I got 19 minutes to go, or I'll make it like 30 minutes, 33, 35. I can't believe I just said 33. That was like an accident. Let's try to make it 35 minutes. So Bible definitions, Jezebel cast. Yeah, so I looked up the word for herself because it talks about Jezebel calls herself in Revelation. Oh, it's 2:20. Is that what it is? 2:20. I'm just remembering now on the top of my head. I really hope I'm right. Okay, Revelation 2:20 says, "Nevertheless, I have a few things against you, because you allow that woman Jezebel, who calls herself a prophetess, okay, to teach and seduce my servants to commit sexual immorality and eat things sacrificed to idols." All right, so yeah, so there's Jezebel in the scriptures, right? And we're going to go into Jezebel. So she calls herself, that's 1488, which this didn't even really mean anything, so I didn't really care about calls herself. I just thought that would correspond with her and come out of her, my people, but it didn't really. So instead I just looked up Jezebel, okay? In Hebrew and Chaldean dictionary, it's 348, okay? In the Greek, right, because it's talking about in Revelations, the New Testament, so this is the Greek, 2408. So first I'm going to start with the Hebrew, or maybe I should start with the Greek first. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that just because it's so much simpler. So yeah, basically it's 2403. Here's the thing, I went into the concordance and I looked up 2408, and it was like corresponds with this, corresponds with that, and it didn't make any sense at all. I was like, what is going on? But in the Strongs, especially with the ink that they used to use, you got to be careful on your 3s and your 8s because they look very similar sometimes if the ink is a little bit, you know, thicker or whatever. So it's 2403, the Greek word for Jezebel. It says of Hebrew origin, 348. Jezebel, a Tyrian woman, in parentheses, used as a synonym of a termagant or false teacher. Okay, so Jezebel is synonymous with false teacher. Okay, what does termagant mean? It means a harsh-tempered or overbearing woman. Okay, an imaginary deity of violence and turbulent character, often appearing in morality plays. Okay, so a termagant, right? Synonym of a harsh-tempered, overbearing woman, violent and turbulent, deity or whatever, or woman, or a false teacher, right? Whether it's lying, seduction, etc., right? And then it says : Jezebel, right? As an example. So let's go back to the Hebrew, 348. It says from 336 and 2083. Now this gets a little bit kind of confusing, but not really. But I'm just going to try to go through it fast because we still got to get to Babylon, right? And I'm trying to teach you guys we need to come out of Jezebel, we need to come out of Babylon, both spiritually and physically, in my opinion. So it says chase, which I don't know if chase means like chastising, like I say I'm chaste because I'm like I'm not sleeping with anyone, and I'm not looking to sleep with anyone until maybe I have a future wife. So I don't know why chase was in here, but maybe my understanding of chase is just wrong. But wife of King Ahab is just 348. That's all. Wife of King Ahab, right? Which King Ahab was a wicked king of Israel, or maybe it was Judah actually. Oh, I forget. I should know that. I think it was Judah actually. Anyways, Hebrew 336 because it said corresponds with or says from 336, probably identified with 335. PROB period ident period. I'm saying probably identified with 335. Parentheses through the idea of a query. Okay, semicolon not dash island. I don't know what that means. Job 22:30. So I don't know what the heck that means, but it says probably with 335. So 335. PERH period. I don't know what that means. From 370. Where, hence, how, what, whence, where, whether, which way. 370. Connected probably to 369. In sense of query only, used with sense of whence. 369. Primitive root, meaning nothing or non-exist. A non-entity, generally used as a negative particle, else, except, fail, fatherless, be gone, incurable, neither, never, nowhere, none, nor anything, not, nothing, not, now, unsearchable, past, without. That doesn't really make the most sense to me, but what I'm getting at here is it's like, all right, so Jezebel is the wife of King Ahab, right? And when you go to the Greek, it's a Tyrian woman uses synonym for overbearing, violent, rageful woman or a false teacher, right? And then maybe like you could even say in the Hebrew, it's talking about like whence it's failing or a non-entity or a negative particle. Else, except, fail, fatherless, a fatherless, false teacher. I don't know. I'm stretching here, right? But I'm just saying, bear with me. It says be gone, right? Incurable, like maybe an incurable Jezebel spirit, incurable false teaching spirit, incurable overbearing woman spirit, violent deity. I'm stretching here, but I'm just trying to get you guys to understand. Past, without, nothing, not. I don't know. Okay, but let's go to Babylon, right? That's what I got from that. If anything, the Greek definition helps a lot, but the Hebrew just makes it a little confusing. So Babylon, Hebrew 894 and 895. In Greek, it's 897. Okay, in Greek, I'll start with that first. It says of origin, Hebrew 894. This is a little bit more simple, I think. Of origin 894. Babylon, the capital of Chaldea. Okay, literal or figurative as a type of tyranny. You think U.S. has tyranny going on and we don't even know it? You think we really live in the land of the free? Really? You guys think that? Come on. Babylon. So now we go to the Hebrew, right? Because it says from origin 894 in Hebrew. Hebrew 894. Babel, that's how you pronounce it, from 1101. Confusion. In Hebrew, Babel means confusion. Okay? Babel, an example, Babylon, including Babylonia and Babylonian Empire. Well, a lot of people call the United States Mystery Babylon, right? So that would be part of the Babylonian Empire, right? So come out of her, my people. Who's her? It's like Jezebel spirit, or her being Babylon. It says the whore that rules Babylon, right? In Revelation, it talks about that, the whore that rules Babylon, or Mystery Babylon, right? So it's this Jezebel spirit ruling Mystery Babylon, right? The U.S. is part of the Babylonian Empire. If you don't believe me, go look stuff up for yourself. We are, we're owned and run by the Vatican and I'm not going to get into that stuff, honestly. So, anyways, I mean, they can't really argue with that though because it's true. But so let's go to the Hebrew 1101, which is what it says 894 is from. It says Balau, a primitive root, to overflow. It says in parentheses, specifically with oil, and parentheses, semicolon, by implication, to mix. Okay. Also a denomination from 1098, to fodder, anoint, or to fodder, anoint, confound, example fade, comma, mingle, comma, mix, in parentheses, self. Mix yourself. Okay. Give provender, comma, temper. Okay, so let's think about this for a second. Give provender, temper. Let's find out what provender means exactly. Provender is just animal fodder. Okay, so to mix animal fodder, right? Which is just animal food. So confound would be the exact definition. Confound would be cause surprise or confusion in someone, especially by acting against their expectations. Okay, so the Greek, it says the origin is 894 in the Hebrew, which is talking about Babylon, which says confusion, which 894 in Hebrew says Babel from 1101. Okay, 1101, to overflow, it says in parentheses specifically with oil, but semicolon, or by implication to mix, right? Also denomination of 1098. 1098 just means mixed. An example, specifically food, fodder, provender. So that's just talking about food. But it means mixed, right? So mixed with what? Mixed with confusion, mixed with the false teaching Jezebel spirit, mixed with the overbearing, mean, cruel, Jezebel spirit, which is a female spirit type deal. Like, I think also we could even be talking about mixed, right? Like United States. Are we not Mystery Babylon? Are we not mixed with, a million different races? You go to China, you'll see white people living in China. You'll see black people living in China. You'll see Arabs living in China. But in China, it's the Chinese. In Iran, it's the Iranians, right? Saudi Arabia, it's the Saudi Arabians, right? In Norway, it's the Norwegians until the past decade, right? Which now we've got all this stuff going on. You go to Peru, it's the Peruvians, right? In the United States, is this not Mystery Babylon? Mix, right? By implication to mix. Anoint, confound, right? Confound, mix with confusion, right? Are we not the most confused nation in the United States? And yet all nations look up to us, like Revelation says. All the nations are drinking of her sins, talking about the United States, talking about Hollywood, stuff like that, right? Back to the Greek word, capital Babylon, capital of Chaldea, literal or figurative, as a type of tyranny, right? Like the United States going into all these other countries, having these wars, which some people don't think, obviously I don't believe the truth about the wars on how they start. Some people go as skeptical as to think like little stuff happen. Dude, wars happen. That's my take on it. Okay, wars happen. All right. I know people that have passed away, right? Unless I'm really out of touch with reality and it's some big hoax on me, I'd contemplate that I was crazy if I didn't believe that the people that I knew personally, like went to school with and stuff like that they passed away and they were in the obituaries and everything like that of the local newspaper. I mean, if they're pulling that big of a prank on us, throw me in the ward. I'm not willing to believe that. I'm sorry. So yeah, I mean, that's it, guys. Come out of her, my people. Lest ye be partakers of her sins. I think we need to grow our own food, and we need to trust in God and we need to repent. Okay, this isn't about believing in God and believing in Jesus. This is about obeying the Most High and following in the footsteps of Jesus. Did Jesus not obey the Most High? I mean, when Jesus said, I and the Father are one, like I take that to mean that he has the spirit of the Father. He's doing the will of the Father, right? I think in another verse he says, my will is the will of the Father, right? We need to have our will be the will of the Father. We need to learn how to repent. We need to live free of sin. We need to go to the wilderness. We need to come out of for my people. And we don't have to go to the wilderness like the thick and the thick, right? But find a place in the boonies, right? Start a farm, right? Love thy neighbor. I mean, it's very difficult for me to love my neighbors when I don't know them and I have 50 neighbors in, a few hundred, I don't know if it's a few hundred, but, in a football field's distance in both directions. I don't know, what do I got, 50, 100 neighbors in a football fields in north, south, east, west, or something like that? How many neighbors do I have that I gotta love? And they're all living in the city, and I can guarantee, a large majority of them are probably living wicked, probably living in sin. You go out to the boonies with people that are like-minded, who are moving out there out of the city as well, trying to get away from Babylon, right? You're gonna find people that are at least trying to live righteous, at least trying to obey the word. So that's my take on it, right? I'm glad this wasn't too long of a video. Do I have any thoughts before I go? No, not really. I think I'm probably gonna break my fast. Okay, if I go until, I'm not doing it before sundown, that's for sure. So if I fast for 3 days, right, that's 3 sundowns, right? Doesn't have to necessarily be 72 hours. That would be 3 days and 3 nights, in my understanding. So, and I didn't necessarily set I have to do this, or, well, before I guess I did, because I thought I was going to be smitten down for relapsing before. Oh, by the way, so, all right, so like I told you guys that night that I had relapsed after I had repented and got baptized, and then I took the Lord's name in vain by relapsing and not being holy, and I didn't even think that there was a remedy for it, and maybe there's not, but I'm going to try the best I can, and if I can live free of sin one day, maybe he can forgive me, but basically I told you guys I did a detox medication that was like, it was an opioid, not like an opiate. It's a joke. I swallowed it. I didn't even end up injecting it. So I didn't get the high that I usually crave, right? And then I ended up getting high on marijuana as well. And then I had told you guys that when I went the first day to go, I don't know if this was 2 days ago, 2.5 days ago, I guess. I told you guys in the morning I went to go to the beach for like 8 hours to just read the word, take a little nap. I went for a beach walk. I took a bunch of notes. I shared that in my video. I left the remaining marijuana at my house, and I actually was upset with myself because at that time I was just planning on finishing it at the beach and then, getting it out of the way, being done with it, right? I ended up coming home later that night, and I went to hit it, and I think I hit it like a few times. Well, no, I know I hit it. I did hit it a few times. And right when I started feeling high, I like put it down, and it was like a joint, right? Like a marijuana joint. And I don't know if it was still like 2/3 of it left or half of it left, but when you're a junkie like me, you get as high as possible, as frequent as possible every time, okay? And I put it out early. I went in, I started listening to like some sermons, and I didn't like the fact that I was high, because then I couldn't read the Bible. I wanted to read the Bible, but I was high and I couldn't read the Bible, and I was like, what the heck, So then instead of reading the Bible, I listened to some sermons and some other people, and then I literally went out to the porch after like an hour and a half when it started wearing down. I took the 2/3 left of the joint, I went to the toilet, I threw it in the toilet, I flushed it down the toilet. So God willing, that'll be the last time that I relapse. As long as I can be strong enough to avoid the temptation, as long as God wills me the strength that it takes, like he willed me the strength that it took to get over the temptation of shooting up opiates when they were right in my face. And I didn't do that. But then I went and I failed the temptation of doing something lesser, which is just ridiculous. It just shows how weak I am, both in my spirit and my flesh, right? Jesus says, even though the spirit is strong, the flesh is weak. Okay, I don't even think I have a strong spirit. I think my spirit is weak, and I'm trying to strengthen my spirit. That way I can conquer my flesh, right? Because God gives us the strength to have dominion over our flesh and control over our body, so we can say no to that alcohol, no to that girl dressing like a whore over there who looks beautiful, right? She's God's creation. She looks beautiful, right? But she's got her glamour going on, which glamour is a form of witchcraft, right? It's you're making yourself prettier than you're supposed to be. It's like, what's wrong with your natural beauty? I'm sure there's plenty of guys that would want to have you, but why are you going around dressing like a whore? you know, and I use that because whoredom is used in the Bible. I'm not trying to insult anyone, but come on. I mean, even the girls know 90% of them plus are probably dressing like whores on a regular basis. I'm pretty sure they can admit that. If they can't, you know, then they have some repenting and they have some deep thought to do. But I'm not saying girls can't show their legs. I'm just saying the girls in my generation, I'm 27, the girls in my generation when I was growing up in school and the ones younger than me, it's ridiculous. Okay, there's a difference between looking pretty sometimes on some occasions or even on some days maybe looking like dressing like that, but when it's every day in your face all the time, it's like it's because we live in a world where we're all brainwashed, right? We've all been led to be insecure. Bless the Lord our God, our Father in heaven, that I don't have the insecurities that I used to have. Right? I used to care about what everyone thought about me all the time, how everyone looked, and oh, how do I look? I used to like pluck my eyebrows, and I used to like, I don't know. It's just ridiculous, right? God bless you guys. Take care. Happy Sabbath.